there's something that's unquantifiable that resides inside each one of us. It's a tremendous potential. It's a force. We can direct the force. But the force itself, before it gets directed, the force itself is unquantifiable. It's power. It's a spiritual potential that's about to take form. And we're sitting right inside of it. It's about to take form inside of us. It's about to become us. This unquantifiable potential, this light, this force, is what the Kabbalists call the Or Ein Sof. The Or Ein Sof means the infinite power. The infinite power that can become anyone, that can become anything. There it was inside Adam HaRishon, and it appears as Adam HaRishon, and wow, I'm in Gan Eden. So fun. And then the same force, it appears in Chava. It's like, oh, here's Adam. Here am I. Hey. The same force is standing there in Avram Avinu, and it becomes Avram Avinu, and it's looking at the world, and it's seeing what's really taking place. It's seeing the people, it's seeing the stars and the planets and the cycles, and it's observing. Wow. Total awe, blown away. Avram Avinu is communicating with that level of intelligence. He's prophesying. He's seeing what the Creator sees. It's this force that stands within Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu, he comes to Klal Yisrael, he stands in front of Paro. Whoa, the courage, the power that's involved. It's the same potential. It's the Or Ein Sof that dressed up as that for that moment. That was the vessel that was available to it, and that's what it did with that vessel. We all want to be a vessel. We want to be a vessel for the Or Ein Sof. We want the Or Ein Sof to dress up in us as something meaningful for Him. We want this potential to animate us in a way that gives us and Him access to life, access to reality. Because He only has it through us, and we only have it through Him. And so it's this power that we try to define when we speak about the worlds that came into existence, when we speak about Atzilus, when we speak about the different forms of angels, when we speak about whatever it is we speak about, we're speaking about the Or Ein Sof as it dressed up as that. So we're skipping the Akdama. That's self-understood. It cannot be anything else. So we don't have to always say the Or Ein Sof as it dressed up. We just say that. Because everything is the Or Ein Sof dressed up as that. What else could it be? Who else could it be? And so this process of dressing up, this process of the infinite becoming something finite, this process is what needs some type of clarification so that we can learn how to cooperate. If we don't understand it, we can't know how to cooperate. If we don't cooperate, we're losing in efficiency. We're losing from the potential of the Or Ein Sof that wants to become us. We're not going to let him. And so in order to speak about this process, in order to explain to a mind that cannot yet relate to this process appropriately, but we want to speak to it anyway, we have to start somewhere. And so we use the power of the imagination to relate to allegories, to metaphors. We can create a mashal. If I can't explain to someone what I really want to tell him, but I must tell him, I can't not tell him. And yet I can't explain to him what I need to tell him. What am I going to tell him? I'm going to tell him something else that he can relate to, but within that something else, I'm going to hide what I really want to tell him. So that when he becomes more mature, he has more intelligence, he will unravel what it is that I told him, and he will find what I'm really trying to tell him. This is the power of a metaphor. A metaphor is a dress for speech. So the speech can go into lower worlds. The imagination is much smaller. The imagination is not properly developed. The imagination cannot relate to what's really being said. But the imagination can relate to a story, to a metaphor. And from there, the imagination can later unravel the real meaning of the metaphor. And so this is relevant to speech. Speech is a metaphor. Every word is a metaphor. What is it a metaphor for? For the Ein Sof dressed up as a concept, as an idea. And so if I say a word, what am I doing? I'm dressing up the Ein Sof into this. Into one word. Out of all the words that I could have said, I'm dressing them up as this word. I said horse. I could have said many other words instead of horse. And then I would dress up the Ein Sof as something other than a horse. But when I chose horse out of all the words, then he's dressed as a horse. The dibur is a mashal. But even further, the horse is also a mashal. Creation is a mashal. Creation is telling us something. But creation doesn't say what it is saying. It's saying everything as a metaphor. It cannot speak to us to say what it's saying, but it, as in a metaphor, it's saying exactly what it needs to be saying. It's always talking. It's talking from within. All the reactions that we have to any type of stimuli is nature saying something very specific about the ultimate will and how we were designed. And it's talking to us outside with everything that's taking place, the whole drama, all the players in the drama, the way that we interact with all the parts, whether it's the animals, the plants, specific animals, different personalities like different animals because of some type of an affinity that relates to the metaphor of what this animal represents. What in the imagination does it bring up? And is that spirit friendly with the spirit that's inhabiting the body, with the spirit that's being dressed for the Ein Sof that's coming into it? The spirit is dressing him up into a specific form. Now, does that animal dress up the Ein Sof in a similar form? And then, oh, they will like each other. There's an attraction there. And so creation itself is a metaphor. Speech is another layer of metaphor. Speech can help us to connect creation to creator, in which case speech becomes the one who connects the upper worlds with the lower worlds, the metaphor, and the real meaning of the metaphor of why is this important, what is it really saying. And so speech can be the connection, or speech can become an obstacle, a competition to the real metaphor. Speech can become an alternative metaphor, a distraction from reality. And so then, when speech becomes a distraction from reality, the spirit, the Ein Sof, actually goes into living within the metaphor. There's nothing other than the metaphor that he can live in. The metaphor is an island. It's disconnected from any real meaning. It's a word-made metaphor. It's created by words. It's created by something that is artificial. It has no real substance to it. It's not relating to the real metaphor that is life. It's an alternative. Like, for example, the entire economy. It has nothing to do with life. It's all man-made. And yet the mind can play with those metaphors and feel the chemicals that it needs to feel and get the rewards and get the punishments as if it's real. The body is reacting as if it's real. Why? Because people decided it's real. So if you're going to get your paycheck, you're going to get your chemicals. So there it is. You're attached to it as if it's real, but it's man-made. The rules are man-made. What you're trying to accomplish is man-made. Whatever you're becoming better at is man-made. It's not real. It's not really the purpose of why you were designed this way. Not only is it not the purpose, not only doesn't it feel right, it contradicts. It abuses the way that you were designed. It was designed to use the energy that you have for something other than what you are. And so it's taking the energy for an alternative purpose. This is because it's an alternative reality. It's not tied into the nature of how the things really are. It's tied into a human will that is enforcing itself upon reality. That's saying other people will have to do whatever it is that they have to do, as long as I will get whatever it is that I want. And so words can really become an alternative. Words can become an obstacle. These words, the words that are an obstacle to reality in the world of metaphor, the animal that represents words that contradict reality or compete with reality is the snake with the double-edged tongue. He has two ends of his tongue because his metaphor is splitting reality into two. Before he spoke, there was one reality. After he spoke, there are two realities. This relates to the original snake that they met in the Gan Eden. Of course, the Torah is the ultimate metaphor. And after the snake spoke, there were two realities. And still till today, there are two realities. The reality created by words that dresses up the Or Ein Sof as one thing, not a real thing. And the reality that is the Or Ein Sof, the way that he would have been without manipulation. How would he have dressed up in this vessel if this vessel was never manipulated? And so the Baal Shem Tov says, this is in Amud HaTfilah, Ois Pei Zayin, Hamoshol hu kli lahasechel. The metaphor is a vessel for the intelligence. The intelligence wants to speak. The intelligence doesn't have who to speak to because the minds are not developed. And so the intelligence must speak at their level. The intelligence must dress up within a metaphor. The world was designed the way that it was designed in order to explain to us our relationship with the Creator. Everything that exists is only here in order to explain to us our relationship with the Creator. That's what the pasuk says. Kol hanikra b'shmi v'lichvoidi asisiv yatzartiv v'lichvoidi b'rasiv yatzartiv af asisiv. Everything that's called in my name means everything that the Ein Sof dressed up as. Kol hanikra b'shmi. Anything that you can see, anything that you can encounter, anything that you can think of, anything that you can feel. Kol hanikra b'shmi v'lichvoidi b'rasiv. I created it for my glory. What is my glory? The glory is the revelation of the truth. He created it for His glory. What's His glory? His glory is that we should know Him. Otherwise, He has no glory. Look, it's a disaster. He did perfectly, and yet it's a disaster because we don't get it. His glory is when we get it. Otherwise, there's no glory in that. And so everything was designed so that we can get it. That's the way it was designed. It speaks. The shape of the nose says. The color of the eyes says. The fact that the ear can hear says. What does it say? Well, we should know. He knows he made it. The Or Ein Sof knows. When don't we know? If we're in the alternative reality, the one created by the snake, the one that doesn't really exist. There you don't know. There he has no glory. There it's all dead, it's all meaningless. You just hustle and you got nothing to show for it. And then you die. That's all there's there. There isn't no glory. There isn't no truth. And so everything is here to reveal. How does it reveal? Through a metaphor. It speaks in metaphor. It speaks in the language of the Creator. It speaks in the same language that our imagination uses in order to communicate with our body. When we think of an animal, of a snake, the imagination is busy. It knows exactly what's being called into action over here. And the body responds to the imagination instantly. And so when we call, we get. We call the spirit, we get the spirit. We say snake, we see snake, we feel snake. We can almost smell the snake. The Or Ein Sof that's listening to us, listening to our every word, says, you said snake? I will be snake. I'll be as snake as you want. And there you have it. If we dress him up as an alternative to reality, oy vavoy, he'll go there with us. But then we're going to collide with the truth. That doesn't feel nice. Then there's a conflict within how we want to dress up and how we're made to dress up. The Or Ein Sof says, here there are rules how I dress up. Here I can't go anymore. And so the mashal is the vessel. Within the mashal is the intelligence. What's the intelligence telling you? Everything you need to know. Between what you're getting from inside of your body and what you're getting from your senses, you have all the information you need. Now the question is the sensitivity of the one who is reading the information, interpreting the information, the intelligence, the attributes. What do they think is happening? What do they think is allowed to happen here? What do they think would be okay as far as they can understand God? How good does it need to be in order to justify such an investment? Or maybe they think it doesn't matter. What we feel doesn't matter. There's an alternative agenda here, maybe. Someone else is getting what they want, and so who cares about us? All those will affect how the Or Ein Sof can dress up within them. What are the potentials? What are the available manifestations? Where can we go with this? ותכים, הדיבור הוא כלי למחשבה. Speech is the metaphor of thought. So if I want to call a thought into your mind, but I can't yet do it through telepathy, so I'll use words. And when I'll say the word, wow, magic, the thought will appear in your brain. And so the dibur is like a mashal, it's like a metaphor for thought. I'm making sounds, but it's not about the sounds. I'm calling the spirit, and the spirit shall appear. Spirit is nice. She functions like an angel. Before we have time to think. Once we have time to think, that's when the trouble happens. Everything is expressing a wisdom. That's why it is the way that it is. There's nothing that just happened to be, because it became through the wisdom. That's why it became in order to do its function relative to other things that are doing other functions that interact with it. The animal is created within the right environment because the process of creation happens that way. Otherwise, the animal wouldn't appear. And so it's all a metaphor. It's all speaking. It's all saying something. And this is the song of the angels. The song of the angels is by them producing what the angels produce. The fact that they're doing so, that's singing to the greatness of the one who designed them and put them exactly in their place, exactly at their time, to do exactly what they need to do. So that's how they sing the praise. If the humans notice. If the humans don't notice, there's no praise. They're just doing it for no reason, so that they can eventually be recognized by humans. That's the only reason they do it. Because they're trying to wake up the humans to know what the humans need to know. They don't have any other thing, any other agenda. They can only do their thing, and when they get recognized, that's when they're singing. Because it means they're doing the training of the human, which is the goal of why all of it was created. And so, כשמדבר בלי כוונה, הוא שבירת הכלים. When he speaks, and it's not a metaphor to something real, then it's a breaking of the vessels. Meaning we're creating vessels that have no light. And those are the dangerous vessels. That's when the spirit gets ripped off. She thinks, oh, here's a vessel. There's food in there. Let's eat it. Here are words. There's sustenance to the soul. And then she eats the words. There's no sustenance to the soul. If anything, there's a little bit less soul after the words. So she's been robbed. She's been cheated. And that's the shviras hakelim. It breaks the vessels. She'en chayis b'kelim, there's no life force in them. There's no light in them. There's no purpose. There's no heart. What was saying those words was an automation. It wasn't the human heart. It was some type of an impulse that just manifests without really knowing the purpose of why it's manifesting. It did it yesterday and it felt good yesterday, so maybe it's the right thing to do. But it doesn't recognize the effect of what it's doing. So it's not the human heart that's animating those words, and then it's an empty vessel. כשהוא מפשיט עצמי מגשמיוס, שהוא הגוף והכלי שלו, אז יוכל לרס הפנימיוס הכלי. דהיינו החייס ואוירה של אויסיוס. So the more we are physical in the body, the more we're busy with the practical world, the more we're going to look at the vessels and not see the light. And then we're going to say practical things, but really we're not going to realize that they have no heart. And that's because we're busy in the practical world. In that world, it seems normal to be saying something that means nothing. But when we come back to the light, when we realize ourselves as a soul, when we realize that we're the one dwelling within the vessel, we're not the vessel, then also the words, we see the soul of the words. And then we see the impact it has on the human heart before we say the words. We taste the words before we say them. And then those words, they're alive. They're words that have light. They're not just vessels. They're not practical in the physical sense. They're practical on the level of soul, on the level that feels and knows. And so this, a person could see when he's more separating himself from Gashmias, that's the physical, the vessel. As Yocholiris Pnimis Akli, you can see the inside of the vessel. Daina Chayes V'Oire Shel Oisias is the life force and the light of the letters. Shu Mafshit Atzme Megashmias. Imau B'Shatzme B'Toich Diburim. Az Idovik Baboiris Baruch Shemoy. When he feels himself as the words that he is saying more than the body he's sitting in, then he's closer to the Creator. Because the Creator is the complete abstraction of any concept and any thought. He's the absolute nimshal, and he is no mashal whatsoever. And so when we go higher into the spiritual realms, we come closer to him. So if I see myself as meaning, as words, if I identify with my words more than I identify with my body, then I'm closer to him. Now I'm getting life from the words. I'm getting life from a more spiritual source. I'm feeling closer to myself. I'm feeling like I'm being pleased. And it's not from something external. It's not from something physical. And so this brings me closer to the source. It brings me closer to being just intelligence, which is pleased by the intelligence of what it creates. It doesn't need any action. It doesn't need any speech even in order to be pleased. That's pure intelligence. The closer I go to that, the more I'm close to my Creator. The more I'm close to my source. The more I can get sustenance in a place that matters. And so when he dresses himself up within the words, then he is closer to the Creator. So then he is dressed within the words, together with who? The Or Ein Sof, that's also dressing up within those words, simultaneously. The form that the Ein Sof is taking in those words, the human is identifying as that. And so he is uniting with the Creator. And together they're dressing up in a very warm and comfy outfit. The words that are coming from the heart. יוסם כל מחשבתה בכוח הטבס שהוא מדבר, עד שיראה האורס של הטבס איך מסנוצצים זה בזה. You should be so focused on connecting to what he's saying, that all of him is saying what he's saying, that he should feel like the words are attaching themselves to each other and light is flowing from the words. This is guiding the imagination towards reality. This reality is so close to our heart that we've never noticed. And by drawing it within the imagination, it becomes a metaphor so that the imagination can relate to the immensity of what it means to utter words. And so as we're combining words, the nerves are moving and connecting with each other. Neurons are firing. The settings of the human body are changing. This is taking place because every word that I'm saying is activating certain nerves, and then when I'm connecting it with the next word, then another nerve is being activated, and then there's a connection that's taking place. And so when this happens in the spiritual realms, there's movements of worlds. There are angels that are replacing other angels. And everything is moving in perfect unison in order for us to have this amazing experience that we're having. Today, with the tools that they have, with fMRI and other tools, they can see this movement now. They can see the angels move in our brains as we're thinking. So thinking is no longer just an abstract idea that, oh, you know, I had this thought. No, your body created and formulated a certain projection of light that looked like a thought to you. But in order for your body to do that, your spirit had to move around a lot of furniture. It's not just, oh, I was thinking. That's not how it works. There's a whole orchestra that's involved in I was thinking, and that orchestra involves trillions of cells. And so in those cells, we're dressing up something very immense before it's becoming the experience that we're having. And so in order to focus in on that, we need the imagination to have something to relate to, something it knows. And so this is how he's describing the process when he says that when he focuses in on the words, he sees the light of the words, how they're shining and sparkling and uniting with each other. They're uniting with each other and they're having an impact based on the unification. If we were to take this seriously, we'd probably be speaking much more slowly. If we were enjoying the process of the words, the light of the words combining with each other. So this is like the unification of a chosen and a kala, of a male and a female. And from their love gets created children. And so if the words are being said with more intensity from the heart, then there is more likelihood of children and more meaningful children that will have other children. And this is all from the power of the words. This is what's known from the Baal Shem Tov, that he says, how do you know if when someone tells you Dvar Torah that it's real, that it's based on true Torah? He said that something that's real has children. So if the Dvar Torah ends up having effects on other things and other thoughts and other ideas, and it starts helping you to make sense of things, then it's probably real. But if it's an island, it doesn't have any results or consequences, it doesn't tie into anything, it doesn't have any offspring, then it's not real. And so, from the combination of the words come consequences that result in more light. Light is planted with the tzaddik, and then later on, from these seeds that the tzaddik planted with his light, come offspring. And those offspring have more offspring, and they populate over the earth. They take over. What does it mean they take over? That in the future, that person that used to think very differently is now thinking in a whole new way because of the light that was implanted, that ended up having an impact on other areas and on other ideas and on other thoughts. And eventually, the entire personality was transformed. And so in the beginning, the tzaddik plants the seeds of light, and then when there's the fruit from these seeds, when the tree grows and then there's fruit, then there's a straight heart, which results in happiness. The seeds ends up giving the fruits, which is an accurate human being. An accurate human being is very happy to be. העושר שבתורה הם חדורים של השם יזברך שממשיך בהם אסצילס אוירה כמו שכוסה בזוהר הקודש. קיטשב ריחי ורייסה כל אחד. And so the words of the Torah, the letters of the Torah, they are the dress that the infinite light dressed up in. And now within those letters are hidden the light. The real meaning of that metaphor is the ultimate light. It's the light that was available to those who could still see. And then they hid that light within the letters, within a metaphor, upon a metaphor, upon a metaphor. And the one who will have the intelligence and the attributes to find out what it really means, that's the one that's going to end up sitting on top of this entire structure of metaphors. And so this process is giving a home to the force that we started speaking about, the force that wants to become. He wants to become in me, he wants to become in you, he wants to become in him, and he wants to become in her. This force, this is the one that needs a house. He needs a home in this world. We create his home through words. And we can create a home that's comfortable for him, or we can create a home that's not comfortable for him. And so the Torah comes to tell us how to create the proper home for this force. And so this force lives in these words. He's waiting to be liberated. He's waiting for us to understand, just like he's waiting for us within our hearts and within our bodies in order for us to understand so that he can be us. the accurate instructions are waiting within the words that have been given over from generation to generation, how to be us. When they still knew, they dressed them up into letters and words. And so therefore the Zohar says, it's one thing. There's no difference between the two. It's the right expression of the infinite force. We call it HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We call it the Torah. We call it Yisrael. We call it many names. But what is it? It's the infinite force when it dresses up accurately within the human being. That force, that's the Torah. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's Yisrael. Where's your soul? Your soul is somewhere far, somewhere distant. Your soul is being used by you constantly, even while you sleep. Your soul is powering up the entire machine. Without the soul, there's nothing. The soul has the instructions of how you build a body. The soul has the instructions of how to feed the body, how to give the body every organ, every limb, everything that it needs in order to do its function. The soul also has the instructions of how to punish the body. If beliefs are being violated, the soul reacts accordingly. It's all based on this intelligence. And so where is this intelligence? How do you interact with it? Your intention. Your intention is what directs this intelligence. Whatever you intend, he does. You don't do, you don't know how to do. You intend, he does. He knows how to do. So your neshama is right here. Your neshama is your kavanah. When you put your kavanah, you put your neshama, you're directing your force and saying, hey, solve this for me. Tell me about this more. Show me this. Help me with this. You're directing a force. The force will respond in kind. That's your neshama. That's your force. That's your power. Your intention directs it. וזהו הדבקס, kitchebריחי ואירייסה דישראל, כאילו אחד. It's all that same one. When we have the right intention, then he, him, me, Torah, it's all the same thing. Because I have the intention that is the right dress for the infinite force. That's what Torah is. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. That's what prophecy is. It's all the same thing once you have it. Once you have it, all those things are the same thing. Oraisa Yisrael kitchebrichi kelachad. V'zeu ispashtes agashmis. That means a person leaves his illusion of thinking that he is physical. He is not physical, he is dressed up in physical. He has tools that convert physical information to spiritual information. Only then can he see and hear. If he doesn't have those tools, he cannot see and he cannot hear. Why? Because he is not here. He is somewhere else. He has translators to somewhere else. If you think he's here, then you become physicalized. Then you feel threatened based on anything that threatens your body, because you think you are your body. Hispashtes agashmis means the realization that you are not your body because your body translates to you somewhere else. You are somewhere else. You see the world of thought. The world of thought is not physical. And you're not even in the world of thought. You're somewhere above the world of thought looking at it. You're somewhere else entirely. And so that's called hispashtes agashmis. He leaves the illusion. He frees himself of the illusion. He removes the burden. It's no longer his burden. It runs on its own. It's how it is. It runs even while you sleep. You can take it easy in there. And so that's called Hispashtis Agashmi. His intention, his kavanah, recognizes that it is closer to the source of it than the body. So don't look down when you look for yourself, look up. Put your intention to the one who is intending, and don't look for your body to look for yourself. That's not where you are. שיפשיט נשמוסה מגיפוי, ותהיה נשמוסה מלבשס באוסן המחשובס שהוא מדבר. His soul should be dressed in those thoughts that he is speaking. וירא כמה אוהלנס עליונים, then he will see the higher realms. Because essentially what's really happening when a person is living in his thought, and he sees the thought as the dress of the soul, and he realizes that the body is further going down, away from the source. It's not closer to the source. It doesn't define you. It's not who you are. It's what you're dwelling in at present. But you are something else. You're beyond. So when you go into these worlds and you realize that the thoughts are where you live, you're essentially flying in the heavens, because all the thoughts are made possible by the stars. The vibrations of the stars, the rays of the stars, are what caused the brain to be able to interact with reality in all these various forms, in all these various drawings that it can have. And so when we're moving within the world of thought, we're moving within the stars. We're activating different potentials, different stars. Different angels are singing as a result of us changing the way that we think. And so when we're thinking and we realize that we're in that world and that that's the reality, it's like we're floating in the spiritual realms. We're floating within the worlds. We're going from one world to another world. How do you know that you're in a different world? If a human being has a different meaning to you, then you're in a different world. In every world, the human being means something else. Until you go to the higher worlds, the worlds of holiness, where a human being is the king. He's a representative of the Creator himself. The lower you go, the less a human being has any value, until you get to the world where most people are, and the human being is below nothing. Like, you probably don't want to be nice to them unless they did something very nice to you. And so that's like, those are the dungeons of hell. Like, we can get there. People go there all the time. Not a good place to hang out. So the higher realms, the inner worlds, when a person is in the world of thought and he goes to the higher worlds, he knows that he's in a higher world because he sees the respect that the angels have for a human being. Suddenly he thinks about human beings differently, and he's like, oh, I'm not used to this. You're not used to this. That's because you're in a new world. Welcome. And so when a person sees the thoughts as reality, he can learn to move within the world. He can learn to move within the heavens, to swim amongst the stars. And this is what all the prophets did before they even gained prophecy, is that they learned the world of emotion and the world of thought, and they learned how to control their emotions and their thoughts, not by force, that would be a terrible idea, but by really understanding and knowing how to release and what to release and how to interact with all these different forces. These are spiritual forces. This is the design of the master designer. Nobody's going to compete with him in wisdom. The only way to gain anything over here is to learn his method and to learn his way. Nobody's going to win an argument with him. They can rest assured. And so all this was designed on purpose. This is the design that he chose to dress up in, and he could have chosen any design. He could have chosen any dress. He chose this one specifically. That's why it's called the Tzelem Elohim. B'tzelmeinu kidmusenu. This is exactly what he likes. This is exactly how he likes it, and it works. It almost even works for us, even though it's been abused so badly. That's just to show how resilient it is. But it's also designed that it shouldn't work if you abuse it. That it should make it difficult. That it should push back. So that eventually we get to the right place. May it happen soon.